Hi there, my name is Kendrick, and today I get to interview Adrian. So, Adrian, welcome.
Hi, thank you.
So, just a heads up, everyone who is watching this, I lost my voice because I got sick, so that's why I sound like this. And Adrian, I also said she lost her voice, so I guess sick season, everyone's coughing and stuff. So, but yeah. So, Adrian, can you please let everyone know what your full type is?
Yes, I'm an INFP, a double feminine FINE, consume, sleep, play, blast, number four.
Sweet. So, what did you think, and how did you feel when you got your typing results back?
I still remember getting the email. Um, I was so sure I was an ENFJ because I was typed, or not typed, but got that result in college in a test. Um, and I listened to lots of ops videos and learned all of the terms. And um, I think I got kind of close. I thought it was FENE by the end when I submitted my video. And I was so scared of being an IP because of the selfishness. But I actually practiced all the questionnaires for when you submit your typing video, and I wrote it out. And I was like, I say I a lot in what I've written now. I was like, it's probably just because I just had an excuse. And so I got the type back FI, and I was like, oh my goodness, I'm gonna have to recalibrate almost everything I know about ops. And so I did that over the next few months, um, just figuring out what that definition meant to me, going over stuff. And so it wasn't like life changing or like terrible, but it was surprising. And I think part of me knew it was coming because I was afraid of it.
That's funny. Yeah, it's funny. Like a lot of people are scared to, like they're like, I'm everything but this type, and then they get that type. It's
Yeah.
it's kind of funny. Like a lot of people I interview have that reaction that you just had. Um, I do think like you could have never been type in MBTI because of your parts. Like when you said you were like you thought you were an ENFJ, I was thinking I'm like, okay, well ENFJs are lead NF, the traditional ones, and as an
Mhm.
INFP you are lead NF, so it makes sense.
Mhm.
And then you are number four, so you're gonna be like very tribe-ish, for an
Mhm.
IP. So that's also makes sense that you would think you're like an ENFJ. So like wanting to connect with others and stuff. So and then with the ENFJ also they have like TI at the bottom, except for you have TE. So you kind of saw that thing as well. So um well knowing
That's,
all sorry.
so I was close.
Yeah, like it's not far like based on like what you could have potentially been in like MBTI land, right? So um but like no knowing your type now,
Mhm.
has that changed anything for you?
Yes. Well, I would say the ops system, knowing the blast last and knowing that it's feminine, ST, has taken a lot of pressure off of me because certain things I've struggled with my whole life, and it's easy to like blame yourself, or just you should be better at this. Um, but now knowing that it's just the way I'm wired, and that means I have to work harder at it, but it took a lot of the pressure off. Like I should be better at this. It's like, well, not necessarily, but it's I could still have goals in that area. So that was helpful, super helpful.
I was just thinking, because you're blast last and you have sleep and play in the middle, your last animal is actually like an observer animal. So you're gonna have a lot of observer problems also, being despite the fact you're a decider because of being blast last. Although what I can foresee being blast last that you could potentially have problems wise with the tribe is you're not speaking up as much as you could have been or communicating as much. Do you feel like that's a problem that you've had, or not so much because you're still number four?
Well, I tell a lot of consume stories, like a lot. And so no one's ever told me that I don't talk enough, I don't think. Um, but like with work, a lot of times I'll get questioned about things that I know or I should know. and my mind could just freeze. And now I know that that's just blast is recalling your known information. But I forgot who there was a class on somebody have to look him up again and consume that again and again probably. But um, he was blast and Dave and Shane couldn't figure out why. And they finally someone sent them a video of him practicing blast. Like he told how he did it, and they were like, "This is why he's so good at it." And I'm like, "All right, so I got to get on that." So I will.
Well, let's talk about your consume story since you touched on it
Okay.
already. Your first animal is NF consume, and if
Hmm.
I'm not mistaken, it's double masculine also. So
Hmm.
it's double masculine, double activated. So it's kind of like an intense NF consume story. Can you share a little bit of how you experienced that?
Well, I'm not sure. It doesn't feel intense to me. And I guess sometimes you can't see your first function or your first animal. Um, but I mean, I just love sharing stories, and I think I could maybe act like a skib sometimes, or maybe that's just me um, calling something anyway. Um, but you know when people are talking and kind of cutting each other off and telling a story and oh that reminds me of this, and I just love that so much. And um, sorry, I kind of forgot what the question was. Oh yeah, so double masculine consume. Yeah, I don't. I mean, from learning about ops, I know with the masculine FI, it's pressure on self. And so I totally get that and understand that because that's been a lot of my life. Um, but the double masculine consume, I don't really understand that. I don't know what feminine consume would be like. I don't really know.
I think with that double masculine consume, from what I've seen, because I think my sister's an ENFP and she's consumed sleep play blast. So like you basically, and she's also the but she's an observer. So I just know with my sister, if she wants something, she has to get it like right now. Like she can't wait, because it's double masculine. Although she is an observer, so she's gonna have like more observer problems. She's not bad at things. With you, you can double observe at least. Do you feel like you have that inclination, like, oh, if there's something that you want to gather now, like you have to gather it now, and you go
um,
really obsessive over it, like, whatever it is that you.
no, I guess I would say the urge to double observe is pretty big. Like when there's a problem, I want to gather everything and then organize it. And I think sometimes that could seem a little crazy. Like we're trying to solve a problem, and I'm like, stop! I need all the information now, everything laid out on the floor, and then we'll organize it. And obviously, that's more abstract than literal, but I think sometimes people that doesn't come across as appropriate for what's going on. Um, but yeah, like when I feel the need to like a little bit of crisis mode, that's how my brain just generally wants to make it happen. But as far as like I want something, so I have to have it now. I don't know if that's just life discipline um, or maybe it's a blind spot. I don't know. I don't quite see that in myself.
Gotcha. Well, you also have saver sleep, so do you think that you do process what's valuable to you physically
Mm-hmm.
um quite a bit, so
Mm-hmm.
that maybe that puts like a break on over consuming perhaps, because you have to stop the process first.
Yeah. Um, yes. So I think that's been a strength my whole life, like knowing what my values are. Um, and I think having good values, hopefully so, and always refining all the time. Um, but I think that's been super helpful. And then as far as sleep, um, I thought it was my hobby function, the third, but it's second. And so when I got my type back, I was well, not confused, but surprised that someone would think I had sleep so high, but I had to just pay more attention to my life and what I do. And I was like, oh, yeah, I do put on the brakes sometimes. And I like, yeah, processing things really, really helps me. Um, and play is my happy function. and I just like it so much. I thought I was lead play, but I am super awkward, so I could see that it's not my definitely not my lead animal. So
Well, you are still a number four. Like my girlfriend is like a sleep consume play blast, right? So she's so extroverted despite being like a double introvert. So it's like just because she's a number four, right? Like she loves people, right? Like at first she said she hates people, but then if you watch her behavior, I'm like, why are you so excited when you see people? Like just so excited, you know? Like even when she got her type back, like she's a double introvert, right? I was like, you're a double introvert and you love people. You can't wait to hang out with people, you know? So it's I've
yeah.
always thought kind of like interesting that your social type makes a huge difference in how you behave. You know, like then you'll see like those play blast consume sleep number threes, and they're like don't want to be around people, so or number ones, right? So it's kind of like interesting how the social type really affects how you behave. So your play is NT, right? So it's
hmm
problem solving. Do you enjoy that
hmm
aspect of like brainstorming, problem solving with the tribe?
I do. I think it comes out a lot on the ops Facebook. I'm always asking the tribe questions like, "What do you guys think about this? Is this right?" And yeah, it's fun to do back and forth. And sometimes people will be like, "No, that's not right." And I'm, okay. And I just go back to my my moat town, I guess. But um, yeah, I had so much fun chatting with people about the weekly typing and stuff like that. As far as yeah, like one of my favorite games to play with my husband is it's a I forgot connections, and you find they give you 16 words, and you find the four that are similar. So I make him play it with me every night. It's so fun.
Gotcha. Well, it's also interesting you have sleep and play in the middle. So like you're
Mhm.
very balanced with that. So you'll know when to hit the breaks. And like can you share a little bit of like what that's like, like when you have like I wouldn't say warning signs, but I guess like signals that it's time to rest and like take a break, or when it's time to expend energy, like just knowing when it's like the right time. Like what does that feel like when you have those like signals that's telling you, to do either one or the other?
Um, well, I don't think I've always been super smart about that. Um, just because my job wanting to do well. Um, I mean, I could go into like zombie mode where it's just we're just working until finally it's Saturday, and I feel like I've just woken up, you know. Um, I can't do that anymore because I have a family now. um, so I think maybe that makes me be more conscious of the work play or sleep play balance there. And putting on the brakes. Yeah, like saying no to things that I would like to do, like going somewhere with friends or family. Like I just can't. Yeah, we. I need to stay home and just have home time. And I see other people who are. They're like, oh, we've barely been home. So we've been going, and I'm a little bit envious, but I just remind myself that that's that's their life. They probably have play and blast in the top, and that's not your life, and that's okay.
That's funny. Well, I'm a play blast person, so I could say I don't know, like I don't do that, you know, but I think I have periods where like, being a play blast consumes sleep person, like I go all in, like doing stuff with a tribe, and then I get really overwhelmed and exhausted, and then I hide away from the tribe with consume sleep. So it's like a big swing, but I think yours is more balanced, and yours is more like observer like, even though you're a decider, because it's consume play and then sleep blast. So you're gonna do like that, you know.
Oh, consume sleep, then blast play.
Or sorry, yeah, consume sleep
Yeah.
and blast play. So I guess you're like introverted in the front end, and then you go crazy, with the tribe. So yeah.
What? Don't tell my secrets.
Yeah. And my girlfriend has the same thing too, right? She's sleep consume play blast. So I have seen like the play blast swing. And I'm like, why are you so extroverted? Holy smokes, like um and also like the order of it is kind of weird. I don't know. Let me know if this happens to you too. But so with my girlfriend, she's sleep consumed, so she's like preserving energy at the early part of the day, and then like the later half, she has so much energy. She's like bouncing off the wall. She's like going play blast with like the tribe and me. But like for me, I'm like play blast, right? Because I'm sleep. So like later on, I'm like, I don't want to see anybody. And my was like, it's time to play. I'm
Mm.
like, I don't want to play. I'm tired. So do you see yourself doing that or
I've seen that at work. I think it's the consume blast on the ends though. Like at the beginning of work, I'm just like doing the emails, excuse me, and reading things and getting caught up. And then when I'm ready to blast and like produce, it's towards the end of the day. And I'm just like, I can't stay late. I've got to get home to my family and like, but now I'm in blast mode at like the last couple hours of like, I wish this could have started earlier. And sometimes I just have to force it, with little tricks with, you just like they say, you just open up the document, like I'm just gonna, and you trick yourself into getting started quicker. But yeah, I could definitely see that in myself when I'm like, all right, now I'm ready to blast. Like, where was this hours ago?
I guess you have to charge up to it. Like it's not something that you have to build up to it, right? It's kind of like for me at sleep blast. I have to build up to the sleep blast, like
Yeah, I don't get it. Sorry, I don't mean to judge. I'm like, that's funny building up to sleep.
yeah. Well, I mean, it kind of makes sense though, because you're supposed to sleep at the end of the day, so it does make sense. Like you shouldn't be
You
sleeping at
got
the
me there.
start of
You got me there.
the
But
so,
like if I have a lot on my mind, I'm like, um, in the car on my commute, I'm like, all right, instead of listening to something, I just have to keep it quiet and think things through. And it always helps so much. Like I'd rather consume something, but I'm like, nope, got a lot going on. We need to sleep energy. And yeah, it's so helpful. So
yeah, I think that's a superpower. Like I wish I took that seriously. Like, because I do have those signals that's telling me, hey, it's like, hey, dude, you need to take a sleep break. And I'm like, I'm good. I'm good. And then it's like it doesn't end well, right? So like from an observer standpoint, like being obsessed with like observer stuff, like even like recently I was looking at like this ring called the Aura ring, and it's like apparently it tells you when to take a break. Because like uh, it like even tells us like, oh, you've like done too much, like you spent too much time, like you like your heart rate's like elevated. It's time for you to take a break. So it's like used by that guy, what's his name, like Brian Johnson, the INTP jumper guy, trying
mhm.
to live forever. So I was like, I think I need to learn something from those like lead sleep people because like they know something, that's important. Um,
Yeah.
but I do want to ask you about your blast because you said that you have to trick yourself to blast, right? So, like, what does that your blast look like, and how does that feel like being blast last? Especially it's like double feminine too, right? And it's
Mhm.
ST, so it's getting like actual like physical things like done, right?
Yeah. Um, so with my job, I've just had to practice being able to recall my known information. Just practice that and get good at it in some areas, and then keep having to refine it and get better. Um, as far as um, things that are with a lot of steps that you have to remember to do, if I have to do it every day, right, I'll get it down and it'll be no big deal. But if it's a random thing or every once in a while thing, I'm just the worst, and it's so hard, and it makes me feel so dumb. But I just can't remember. Um, so lists are my friends. I used to really hate SI, and I didn't know what it was growing up and in my teens and 20s and stuff. But just attention to detail, I was always so bad at it, and and directions. I'm super bad at directions. But yeah, it was like a thorn in my side. But now that I'm older, I'm just like, I can use SI to my advantage. Yeah, I'm not good at remembering the sensory, but like I love a spreadsheet. Like, I will write lists all day. And so I'm just trying to lean into that more. It's really helping me a lot. But I look forward to making even better lists and spreadsheets in the future.
Like those IJs. Yeah, because your ST blast would be like you being like an ISTJ, right? So Like you gotta channel your inner ISTJ. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Like we're all like, like being in like the Delta quadrant, you're like all four of those technically. Like when you consume, you're like an ENFP. When you sleep, you're like an INFP, right? Or like when you play, you're like a ESTJ. So it's like, NFI like ISTJ, right? So it's like, yeah, like you are all those parts, like
Mhm.
um with that being said, though, I do want to segue now to your social type. I think that's like the big one here. So you are an
Mhm.
IP, like the IP story is like on the front end, you're selfish, but on the back end, you're like more like tribe oriented. And then like ultimately as an IP, you uh innately will have a desire to serve the tribe later, at least later on in your life, maybe. Um, can you share that desire to serve the tribe despite being like an IP, and like and in reality, do you see yourself doing it? And then also to follow up on that is one of the IP blind spot is not scanning the tribe's perspective. It's just
Mhm.
hard to see it. Can you just share the difficulties with that and the challenges?
Sure. I'm laughing because it's like, can you talk about the most embarrassing thing about yourself? Sure. We'll talk about this social type real quick first. So I thought I was a EJ, and then when I got typed a couple years ago, weren't doing socials yet, so I thought maybe I was an EJ number one. Like I knew that there was a what is that called? I can't think of the word, but discrepancy there, but it turned out it was the opposite. It was IP number four. But I found out it was IP, and I was like really confused about the social type. And so I kind of tried them all out, sort of, like just thought about them individually, different days. And I remember when I tried out number four, I was like, all right, I'll just at work, I'll just today I'll talk to people more. And I did, and it was like the best day at work like I've ever had. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm a number four. um, because Shannon said, your social type is what makes you happy. And I'm like, oh, all right, yeah, this makes a lot of sense. And so then I got retyped to make it official or whatever. But yeah, and I think it's helped me in my job. I'm like middle management and lead other people. And it's always been really important to me, a big part of my FI, that I do a good job and look out for the people um, who are in my division, and make sure I do right by others. And so I've worked really hard at that. So um, yeah, I think being a number four has helped me in that sense. Um, Having flex last has been difficult, and as they refined it, everyone's always talked to me about be confident, and I'm working on my posture and everything. Um, and even as they refined the social types and social type for being externally motivated, I could see that with leadership, it's important to be have that internal drive. Like I know the answer, I know what we're gonna do. If you're more externally driven, it's hard to be the leader to make the decision. Doesn't mean you can't. Everybody can do everything, but it just makes it more difficult. And so um, I've seen that lately too. Um, and it's just another part of life, I guess. But um, I kind of have been OE jumping around. I need to get back on track.
That's okay.
So let me think. All right, so social type, and then you wanted me to talk about okay, being an IP. Okay, so I talked a little bit about serving others in um, a switching career fields, something more NF that I'm really excited about, and um, it's definitely in the field of helping others. So I'm super excited about that as well. Um, I think for a long time was wanted to be a mentor, and I have been every time I chance I had an opportunity unofficially, but I was afraid to like officially be a mentor because I always feel like I don't know enough or I haven't done enough, all of that stuff. I think it's a consume versus blast issue, but um, I'm trying to be more brave That's why I reached out to you and said, "Hey, I'll do that interview," because you asked me about 2 years ago, and I was like, "Heck no." So I'm trying to be more brave. And yeah, but IPs, not scanning the tribe. I think it's just a blind spot for sure. Um, I have noticed because after I got my type back, I started to pay attention more because David Jan kind of said how IPs have a hard time talking about other people. And I sometimes I do, it's hard to describe others or recall things. And I don't know, I'm just trying to pay more attention to it. And um, but as far as I don't, I still feel like I do a lot of FE because I care about the vibe so much, and I do the whole people pleaser thing. Like, yeah. So I don't know as much about that, I guess. I guess I need to observe the EJs more to see what's on the opposite side of the spectrum, like what it would actually look like to be scanning the tribe all day long.
Yeah, yeah, they're scanning the tribe all day and they're like forgetting themselves. So it's quite interesting. It's like the complete opposite of like what the IP would do. Like I'm a double decider, right? So I do both. So it's like, oh yeah, no, I do look at the tribe first, being tribe above self myself. But then, I also check with myself too. So I'm always doing both constantly. So it's like, oh, it must be tough being a double, not double, sorry, like being a single decider, because like I feel like people problems is worse than things problem, from my
Hmm.
perspective. Because like I feel like with things problem, you could solve it on your own time. But with people problem, it's kind of like it can blow up at you at any time. So I'm like kind of thinking like, oh, yeah, I think the deciders they have a harder life in my opinion, just because of um like decider problems. Like that's constant, right? Like the tribe is something that you seek, especially if you have save your friends, right? But then there's also the fear of the tribe, like judgment and
Hmm.
whatnot. Like I do want to ask you, like, what's that feel like for you? Like, having that fear of judgment, that fear of tribe hate and all that stuff, like what's that feel like? Like,
Ah! Another zinger. So it feels awful. um, Let me think. Yeah, it's a lot of probably needless worry. And maybe that's where blast or checking with the tribe could help more. We just assume if somebody is in a bad mood that you did something wrong, or yeah, just definitely afraid of being judged. Like I think I've come out of my shell a bit in the past couple of years, which is kind of scary. Yeah, and doing this is a huge leap for me. So thank you for the opportunity. And yeah, judgment is it's really scary, and I'm super jealous all the time of the double deciders. They're like, yeah, that sucked, but it's fine. People will forget it next week. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I still remember stuff from when I was a child. It's crazy. Um, so I guess it's nice knowing that it's possible.
yeah, that's funny. I mean, I wouldn't say like maybe the double deciders are projecting too much. It's like, oh yeah, they'll forget about it next week. Oh, well, maybe the double deciders will forget about it next week. The single deciders have not forgotten it, you know. Um, so unless maybe they're play last or something, but even then, I don't think they would. Um, because it's such like a triggering thing, right? Like you can't forget what triggers you, right? Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, for sure. Um, there was something I was just thinking about. So as an IP, um, what does that feel like, being scared of the tribe? I'm just kind of curious. Like, and I give you props for coming out with interview because I think that for deciders it's quite scary and challenging. Like I've always seen like IPs and EJs, like you guys kind of like even though you're opposite coins, you're kind of the same people. It depends on where you are in the swing, right?
Mhm.
So the fears are kind of very similar. So I just want to know, like, at one point in like any tribe interaction, do you feel like you're kind of a little bit paranoid, you're scared that like, oh, I'm gonna get judged or they're not gonna like me or whatever? And where does that like the point also cross over where like you don't have that feeling anymore because you're like
Mm.
accustomed to the other person or like you've already have like
Mhm.
an established relationship and then you don't I wouldn't say care as much anymore, but like
Yeah.
you feel safer, that you can
Mhm.
just freely
Mhm.
express yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally get what you're saying. Um, well, it's funny because it could be anything all the time. Like with strangers, on the one hand, they don't know you. So you're not really that worried about judgment. But if it's someone who you're meeting that you know is going to be a part of your life, like a new neighbor, or are going to a new church, or a new boss or something, then it's a really big deal. And I used to, I probably still do, but keep a running tally in my mind of what I thought other people's impression of me were. And I just thought that was what everybody does or what you should do. Um, Sayings like your reputation is none of your business, or what other people think about you is none of your business. It's just so foreign to me. And I'm like, how do people live their lives that way? Um, but I'm open to that. And um, yeah, I want to. I mean, this sounds like something that an IP would say, but I want to stand on, knowing myself and that I don't need to worry about judgment because I know myself and that um, I hold myself to my own standards. But like you said, I mean, you can't really change that you're a decider. You just do the best you can. Um, yeah, and then people you've known forever, like say your friends from high school, and you really feel comfortable around them, but still, it's like time's gone by, you've changed. Like, what are they going to think about this or that? Um, yeah, I wish I didn't do that. um, and then you asked when you get to the point where you feel comfortable. I'm not sure. Um, I think maybe for me as a lead FI, people who I know share the same values, like people at my work, um, people at my church, people from my hometown. Like there's a shared values, and so I feel like I can be myself and be more vulnerable. And I don't mind being vulnerable. I kind of, to a certain extent, I like that because I like sharing who I am. So does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. Um, like I'm not an IP and like I'm private about self, but like I do like talking about myself too. So it's not like, it's not just like an IP thing. It could be like a play thing, like you want to go back and forth, right? Like, oh, I want to share about myself, but I also want to learn about you.
Hmm.
Like from my like personal experience, like with IPs, I've always found IPs to actually be like really good listeners. Except for maybe like the sleep blast play consume. But like but like yeah, in general, like I've always found IPs to be like really good listeners. And like with my IP friends, like whether they're INFP, ISTP, INTP or whatever, like when I talk to them, I always find like they're genuinely curious at like what I'm doing. Like, and because then you would think it's like, oh, you're an IP, you don't really care about what other people think or what they're doing or what they're up to. But in reality, I never actually saw that. Like I actually found like IPs, like in general, unless they're like a social type one or something, like they actually care of like they're actually really curious at what you're up to, especially if you're like close friends with that person. So, like, do you find yourself like being intrigued also by your friends and like what they're up to and stuff, and you actually want to like know what they're up to and stuff, and like how do you see yourself with that, like being because you're number four too, right? So, just like being genuinely curious about like the tribe and like, like building a bond with your friends and stuff, like really getting to know them.
Yeah. I would say as a mope, I'm kind of a homebody these days with my husband and kids, and so I don't have as much time um, for friends as I would like with work and everything. But yeah, I like to think that I'm curious. Sometimes I have to remind myself to ask people how they are. They ask me how I am, and then I'm like, oh crap, I gotta ask them how they are. And that's embarrassing to admit. And um, yes, everyone says this, but small talk is like, ugh. Um, so sometimes it can be difficult to know what question to ask somebody. But yeah, if somebody has something that they're excited about or they're working on, I totally want to know more about that, especially if it's not something I'm interested in, because I'm like, wow, people are so cool. Like, look at you over there working on cars. Sweet. I can't do that.
It's uh it's interesting that you forget to ask people how they're doing also. I think that's kind of kind of funny. But from my experience with like actual with like IPs though, they've always asked me how I'm doing, like from my IP friends, even the introvert ones. So um yeah, it's not something that I've seen like unless like I said they're like a number one, right? You know, or play last. So
Excuse me.
yeah, it's okay. We're both sick. So like I mean recovering, I guess, from being sick. But I am curious. Well, actually, what I want to segue to now actually is since you requested this interview, I want to make sure that we actually discuss something that you may have been thinking about, since I asked you 2 years ago. So I'm pretty sure there's something that I've been like mulling over or whatever, or like you wish we discussed. So I kind of want to open the platform to you, to see like
Oh,
what haven't we discussed yet that you want us to discuss about that that you feel like, oh, we should talk about this. This should be like a fun conversation to have or something, or like you're curious about since like I do so many
oh,
interviews, right? So is there something that you'd like for us to talk about, like you to kind of like the final parts of this interview?
oh. I did not think about that because mostly I was just like making myself do this, like walking myself off the plank. You
Yeah.
will do this. um, but well, I think this is cool that you do this. Um, and so I'm curious about you and like um do you think your format will change or do you have a goal of how many interviews you want to do or what's next as far as this goes?
Oh, I don't think I will change the format for interviews. Like I'll keep it as is. I've always seen it as my constant. Like when I interviewed,
Mm,
like I told them, oh, yeah, I wanted to be like a YouTuber, but I also wanted to be realistic because I'm an EP. I have SI at the bottom. So if I had to make like custom explainer videos all the time, I would probably not be able to maintain the channel.
mm.
So being double activated NT play, like I'm not touching the triggering function, the SI. So I can interview people all day, like literally, right? The only thing I'm done recently though, like I kind of stopped reaching out to people to interview people. So if people want to be interviewed, then they're welcome to email me or contact me by Facebook to set it up, and I'm happy to interview them. I just haven't like had the time to like reach out to people like I used to because I'm more busy nowadays. But I still definitely like love to interview people. So it's not going anywhere. It's just constant. I like being the interviewer guy for like in the personality space.
Nice.
Yeah, like I take pride in having like the biggest library of interviews of officially typed people. Like I think that's super,
Yeah.
you know. Um,
Yeah.
like people's like, oh, I wish I can learn more about like what my type is like, or I wish I can learn more about like the certain type. Like, I think people look up like interviews when they're trying to understand their type, number one. And number
Mhm.
two, if they're like trying to date someone and they want to know more about that type, they'll like watch that video. It's like, okay, let's see what these people are like. So I like having like an archive of like individuals I've interviewed and like, different behaviors and whatnot, and people being able to like reference it, like kind of like look it up and be like, oh, like I have a crush on this girl or guy, I wonder what they're like. I'm gonna go watch this video. Like, oh, I'm trying to figure out what my type is. Let's look at like a bunch of types, and then like I've seen people in the comment section be like, oh my God, this person's like me. I'm like this. So I think it's cool. Like, I'm not gonna change the format in that case. I think the only thing I would change format wise is like I'm gonna stop making those explainer videos that people want me to make. Uh, I know that sounds kind of like what? What do you mean? Um, like I was watching that video with like Vanessa Lau. I don't know if you saw that class with like that ESFP girl.
Mhm.
Like that really resonated with me because she's a YouTuber, right? She's like she only makes videos that she feels compelled to make, like for her FI specifically being tribal of self, right? So for me, I'm like, yeah, there's like many times I can't get up in the morning because I'm like feel so overwhelmed. Like, oh, I have to make this video now that people want me to make. I feel like I just don't want to make it,
Um,
you know.
mhm, mhm.
So I want to make videos that I want to make because like it's not just Vanessa. Like I was watching some other YouTubers and they're like, oh, like with F people with FI, they're like, you should make videos that you want to make because otherwise, you're not gonna put passion into the video, you know. So for me, like as like a double decider, I think the best of both worlds for me is like I interview people and that's for the tribe, right? And then and for what is myself, I'll find topics that I find interesting in the personality psychology space, and I'll focus on those videos specifically because I feel like I would I would be able to make more of those kind of videos. And like honestly, when you make a video, there's people gonna like it or not like it, regardless of what
Yeah,
you do, right? So
yeah,
it kind of makes sense. Like you should honor your FI and like make like a videos that you want to make because there's other people that's gonna like it. Like no matter what you do, as like a double decider, like people are gonna like you or not like you. Just it's people are gonna like not like you for no reason whatsoever. It's like
yeah,
nothing to do with you. Like you didn't do anything wrong. It's like just look. People just didn't like the way you look or like the way you say something, right? So you
yeah.
you can't win them all. Just be yourself ultimately. So.
So true.
So I think that's like the superpower of like the IPs is like, oh yeah, you're just being yourself, and some people are gonna like you, some people are not, right? Could you do better with serving the tribe? Of course you can. Everyone can, right? Just like everyone
Mhm.
can, be better at also like honoring themselves, kind of like the IP story, right? You know,
Oh, yeah.
so no, so yeah, do your best, but ultimately you're human, so just cut yourself some slack. Also, that's the way I see it. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I
Um,
like that. Yeah. Mm.
All right, Adrian, I'm gonna wrap up the interview soon. Is there something else that you want to mention before we do wrap up the interview?
I don't think so. I would just say thank you so much.
Yeah, well, thank you for coming out and sharing more about yourself. I always enjoy chatting with INFPs, and it's always comfortable for me to talk with fellow Delta Quadrant people because like we have the same functions, different
Yeah.
order. So yeah, it's like I feel like when I talk to you guys, I don't have to translate anything. Just like sometimes I have to like when I talk to like the other quadrants, I have to like kind of like use my NE, be like, okay, I have to make sure this person understands what actually trying to convey. Because like they might process it differently because of different functions. But the fact that we
Yeah.
have the exact same functions, it's like, oh, I don't have to do that. You'll get from home.
Yes. That is interesting to me when I talk with people of different quadrants. Like maybe I don't know their type, they're just a random person. But when I think I'm being so clear and they just don't get it, have to explain it three different ways. Or when they say something, I'm like, no. And I actually listen to what they said and like, oh, yeah, why didn't I get that the first time? And I guess it's probably just different quadrants. It's like so crazy to me because we're speaking the same language. It's crazy.
Yeah, like even like with those guys like the INTJs, ESFPs, ISFP and ENTJ, like you would think it's kind of similar, and it is. Like the FITE for sure, you would connect. But my God, that NISE is so different. Especially the SE. It's kind of dangerous. Sometimes you say something to those guys and they take what you say at face value. When you're actually using your NE to like brainstorm or like throw out like a concept that it's not even personal, you don't care about it at all, right?
Yeah.
It thinks
Yeah.
personal because they have NI, right? They're like, oh, you're saying that's personal. And you're like, no, 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 it's not. I don't actually care about it at all. Like I'm just taking conversation honestly, and they're like, what? You know, so um,
All right. I'm just thinking of an example. So
yeah.
it's pretty funny. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you have those like other guys that's like like the ENTPs, INTPs, like ISFJs and ESFJs, like you can connect through the NE and SI, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
But then when it comes to like the tribe stuff, the TIFE is like it's very different. So it's like, oh no, we're talking past each other now. It's not, like I'm not talking about that. And I also don't value that. And I'm gonna sound like a jerk now because I'm not respecting the FE. Like, and I feel like I'm being trapped with this FE person. They're just like asking me like a trap FE question now. Like like so yeah,
That's funny. I can't think of an example for that, but it's still funny.
yeah, exactly. But
Well,
anyway,
that's another good thing. Like, I just love being able to use these terms with you. Like, random people, they don't know. Like, I'm like, oh, I'm so blast right now, and they're like, what the heck are you talking about? So, anyway, this is fun.
like what's a blast?
Yeah, yeah. But this was very fun. Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, like I said, glad to have you. We'll wrap it up here now, but I do appreciate you coming here and sharing about yourself. I think you're brave for doing that, especially being an IP. And I think I also like it when IPs come over because it gives other IPs courage, other EJs to do it. So it's cool. So I think you're setting a good example for your fellow IPs as well. So
All
thanks.
right. Thank you. All right.
All right.
Bye.
Enjoy the rest of your day and get well soon.
Thanks, you too. Bye.
Bye.